Greetings, traveler.
So let's go over the patch notes. What has changed? Guff has gone from 30 tiers to 25. When I was really thinking about this is just a really shitty Silas, right? Because getting a triple reward is nice, but once you get this operational where you're just buying a lot, you don't really care too much if you're pulling 6s or 5s or whatnot. Silas can just buy a 1-cost spell, a scout, and a thing, and then boom, I discover something. 25 tiers worth. Let's say I'm on tier 5 and I buy 3 5-drops. I'm still only 15 out of 25. Kinda awkward. So when I make that comparison, it feels so trash. The main way it sets it apart is that you could probably set this up that you can get a 6-drop early-ish where you buy enough cards and then you like, okay, now I level to 5, now I buy my last card, now I've got the tier and I'm good. With APM it's nuts. Explain how this is nuts compared to just Silas. And Silas is not a broken hero. Silas is not a hero we think about and say, oh my god, he's insane. If you're APMing with Silas, like, you can just literally buy 3 tickets. Yeah, but once you're APMing, the tier is no longer relevant, Celestalon. Once you're APMing, it's implied that you're on 5 or 6, right? And you can make Golden Brand or just level for Tethys or whatever. Silas, you need specific cards. Yeah. So if you are making the argument that Guff having to buy 25 tiers of stuff is worth not having to pay attention that you don't buy a few 1-cost spells that have tickets on them, that's crazy, right? Like, why would I want that? That's not an upside. That's not something where like, oh, it's good because I don't have to pay attention to what I'm buying. No, I would gladly pay attention and just buy a 1-cost spell and a scout with a ticket on it from time to time instead of having to buy 25 whole tiers of cards. Again, right, if we're talking about 5-drops, that's still 5-drops you need to buy to proc this. That's a lot. I just don't see how Silas isn't just way better, right? I think the only real thing is that you can use this to get an early 6, whereas Silas wouldn't be able to do that. But once you're online, right, the argument that you're making, once you're online, once you're APMing, Silas is just better in every metric. Like, the time it takes for Guff to proc once, Silas can proc 3 times. Here we are. So Automaton is getting nerfed. Surprise, surprise. It's going from 3-2 to 2-1. We're also going to see that they're going to hit chess set a little bit, but I'm not sure if this is enough to really make it bad. I think that it's probably still solid. It's just not going to be as oppressive as before, but I would not be surprised if we see an additional nerf later on, making it the 1-1, but it's possible that 2-1 is the sweet spot. Excuse me, we'll see how that ends up. Then Mutinous goes from tier 6 to tier 5. I don't exactly know why. Maybe it's to support Nagas now that Shelemental is out, so that you can throw your Spellcraft and then eat it. But it feels nice. I just played a game and being able to buy a Mutinous on tier 5 felt really fun. My initial experience is good with this. Cruise Controller. This one surprised me. So it turns out that people are either not playing Skelly Comp or they are losing with it. My experience is that Skelly Comp has been really good. It goes from a 6-3 to a 7-3, and the attack bonus goes from 4 to 5. Wow. That is, that seems so... Yeah, I mean, the only explanation is that in their stats, Skelly Comp was doing poorly. So it needs a flat buff, because this is not a trade-off. It's just a flat buff. The minion is now stronger and its effect is better. We'll see if Skelly Comp becomes a problem or not. I've had really good experiences with it. I think that for the most part, people don't know how to build it yet. I think in my opinion, you just stack as many flag bearers as you can with as many Titus as you can and a cruise controller, and that's it. And then you're done. Like, you deal so much damage. It's so silly. Ice Fisher goes from tier 6 to tier 5. So it's truly now Gambler, or not Gambler, Dealer. Dealer was the pirate that grew every time you got gold, but it was on tier 5 instead of tier 6. So this is basically just Dealer, which I think is fine. I wasn't really using this card a lot. So if I get an early Tethys and I get this from the Tethys, now I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just use it. So Snail goes from a 2-3 to a 2-2. Yeah, this does make Snail very iffy to buy. So I don't think you just pick this up anymore. I think you want to pick this up when you have a plan. So if you're going to stay on tier 1, buy another one, get a coin, or you're playing someone like Holiday and you grab a spell on turn 2. Because having a 2-2 for 2 rounds does feel really bad. Like, that's a lot of damage taken. So we'll see. A-Bomb goes from a 2-6 to a 3-6. The buff goes from a 2-2 to a 3-2. This is honestly not really exciting. So I feel like I would only really play this if I just pick this up early, where, you know, my board has some summons and then I go to tier 4 and I roll 2 A-Bombs and I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just put them on my board And now they're on my board, and now they're getting bigger, they're buffing my board, and I'm just like, okay, I'll just triple you and keep you. I don't think I would go to tier 5 or anything and then say, oh, I need A-bomb, I need A-bomb on my board. Again, might be wrong, but it feels like board slots in that particular composition are so coveted because you want to have the Crasher to buff your board, you want to run Titus, you want to run the extra death rattles, so intuitively still not a unit I'm going to be looking for. Hunter of Gatherer going to tier 4. That is pretty specifically good for the dragon trinket that buffs one of your dragons, the glider. So we'll see that got buffed as well. That is a very specific interaction, but if your only dragon on the board is Hunter of Gatherers and then you play with glider, you will get so much HP on your board. So having this on tier 4 actually makes that doable, whereas having it on tier 5, it was a long wait. And then you'd have other dragons on your board, and then you'd have to sell those, and it was very like, meh. I would be interested in trying this. This doesn't seem unwarranted. Crow's Nest goes from a 5-2 to a 4-2, but it now buffs 4 health. Yeah, that's just a buff to Pirates. Pirates struggling, I suppose. Lightfang goes to an 8-6 and now buffs 4-3. Yeah, Lightfang is super outdated. It's just not scaling that matters. When you saw my last game that we just played, we had Cheese Wheel plus Fellbat. So we were just eating 40/40s from the shop. Who gives a shit that I'm getting +4, +3 end of turn? And if I want to double end of turn, I have to play a Drakari. And then when I play the Drakari, I can't. It's not an extra type. And it's so like, yeah, Lightfang scaling is so outdated. There's so many ways where you can get huge here. So I really don't rate this kind of strategy right now. I don't think it's good. The portrait has been adjusted, so don't worry. It's not like you're getting an even better Lightfang early on. So we'll have a look at that later. Bedrock goes from tier 3 to tier 2. That felt really fun in my game. Did not feel like, oh my god, broken, because you are still putting a 2-2 on your board. It's similar to Front Rake, but because you're not buying it on turn 1, you're buying it on turn 3 or later, it does take a while. But if you have Party Elemental on your board, right, Molten Rock, this helps quite a bit. So I did enjoy playing my one game with it. Zeddy, this was the change that we were all expecting, and it's the change that honestly did not make any sense before. Zeddy went from only spellcrafts to it now copies any spells to let's not do that, let's go back to spellcraft. I don't know why we needed to make that excursion to say, hey, what if I could just golden my whole board of Zesties with Eyes of the Earth Mother and be like, yep, that's broken, okay, change it back. But hey, here we are. So this makes sense. That's a good change. That's a good revert. It makes sense. Then Gargoyle goes from a 5-1 to a 9-1. Yeah, I wanted this minion to be good because it seems super fun. But the issue was that you generally didn't really have a board space for it. It didn't really help your board grow. So it was tough. The change makes it so that it's a higher tempo card. So it's similar to A-Bomb. If you're buffing these cards, then maybe you just have them early because they just make sense to buy because it's the best thing in the shop. And then you're going to end up with it on your board in the end. Bobblehead went from 1 gold to 0 gold. I still don't really love this. Just every time I've picked this, it's felt too slow and not a big enough impact. I might want to just pick this if I really don't want to pay any gold, and then I can level. Because when you are selecting your lesser trinket, how good the trinket is really not the only thing that matters. A big part of your trinket selection is the cost so that you can see how your turn is going to end up. If you are going to have a horrible turn because you want to pick a good trinket, your good trinket might suddenly not be that good anymore because the cost is that your turn is now horrible. You're going to float gold, or you're not going to be able to level, or you're going to be super weak or whatnot. So I have had success picking trinkets that are very mediocre, like for instance, Token of the Old Gods, because it was very cheap and it allowed me to level or level plus buy a card, and I could do some cool stuff. So making Bobblehead 0 definitely does help picking it, mainly in those situations where you're just not interested in the other picks because they are going to make your turn bad. Here we are, Token of the Old Gods, same treatment. It goes from 1 gold to 0 gold. Same argument as Bobblehead. It's not great, but it's cheap and it means that you can do whatever you want with the rest of your turn. Souvenir Stand going from 3 gold to 2 golds. I believe this was even 4 gold originally, right? So yeah, people just dying, which makes sense. There are huge power spikes happening from other people with their trinkets. Some people, not so much, but other people are getting something like the Fellblood Portrait, Rewinder Portrait, Automaton Portrait, right? Things that drastically change your board. And then you get hit with a Souvenir Stand, you're paying originally 4 gold, and then it does nothing for 3 whole turns. A lot of the time it just meant that you were dead. So yeah, changing this to 2 gold at least makes it so that your turn doesn't necessarily suck, and then maybe you can survive. Kodo Litter Pouch, same argument as the other cheap trinkets. This thing is bad, so make it 0 gold, and then maybe sometimes I will want the bad trinket. Yeah, +2/+1 every time I buy a card. I can't aim it. It's going to a random minion. It's just not what I'm looking for in a trinket. Keychain goes from 4 to 3 gold. Yeah, this is obviously like way better when you look at it. This allows you to just build up a unit, have it taunted, then transfer the stats. Some synergy with Poet, some synergy with Terragosa. You get immediate tempo because if your biggest minion is the one that dies first, suddenly you have 2 of those in terms of stats. So it's not the best trinket, so I can see them turning it from 4 to 3. But it absolutely does change your tempo quite a bit. Cathedral from 3 to 2, yeah, not a huge buff, just, you know, was not performing as well. I've had decent experiences with this. This works super well if you have an Evolve in your hand, because now you can turn 4 drops into 6 drops, and getting 6 drops on tier 4 is super strong. So there's absolutely player potential here to make Cathedral a lot better, but it does require you to very specifically plan your turns and really decide what you're going to copy and if it's going to be worth it or not. It's not a trinket that is just guaranteed to be good. You really have to try to make it good. But if it is really good, then, you know, you do perform quite well. Module Globe or Model Globe, very similar to Souvenir Stand. It's just very slow until you get value. You just have to make those trinkets cheaper so that you might be able to survive to get that value. That's a huge difference, right? Again, we talked about it. All those portraits that provide you tempo immediately. If you pick something that does nothing for a few turns, you're going to be weaker than those other people and you're going to be taking damage, and that's not good. You want to keep your health high so you can survive a high roller. Especially in the trinket meta, I find it really important to keep 15 plus health, so 16 or more, that I'm able to just tank someone that got something illegal. So I have a huge premium on having 16 health, because sometimes you just hit someone where no matter what, you were going to take 15 versus them, end of story. Trinkets that deal a lot of damage to you early because your board sucks, they have to be worth it, for sure. And a lot of the time, especially if you're weaker because you have to pay more gold, it's not. Then Automaton goes from 7 gold to 6 gold. That's better. But Automaton got nerfed, right? So it went from 3-2 to 2-1. So we'll have to see just how good it is. I think it's still decent. So it's still going to be tempo. It's still going to give you some direction. But it's just not going to feel as insurmountable as before. The way before was, oh, I have this really nice demon setup in the mid game. Oh, never mind, my opponent has a couple 2-drops. I guess I'll be taking damage here. Then Fishy Sticker goes from 2 gold to 1 gold. I suppose that it was just a little bit too difficult to set it up, because this is not something that I really expected for Fish of N'Zoth to not be good enough, but this is just based off their stats. So I guess too many people were taking Fishy Sticker and dying with it. I think if you have a good setup for it, then it's quite solid. The issue as well is that you cannot position the fish, so it will always spawn in front of your Titus, or behind your Titus rather, and you can't cast Reborn on it, any of those things. Gort is going to 0, same explanation as all the other ones. It's not good, so give it to me for free, and then maybe sometimes I'll buy it if I don't want to pay gold for the other trinkets, because then my turn's gonna suck. Music Box goes from 1 gold to 3 gold, but you're getting a Battlecry minion right away. So that is quite a big change. So effectively, it's only a 1 gold increase, because when you think about it, it goes from 1 gold to 3 gold, but the Battlecry minion you get straight away, you could hypothetically sell, and then it would only cost you 2 gold to get the Music Box. So that is a nice buff. So for effectively 1 gold, you're getting a Battlecry minion on the turn where you take Music Box, which does help you be stronger. Because sometimes leveling is going to cost you 5 gold, you have 8 gold total, you get the Music Box. Now you have a unit on your board that you would normally have bought, right? So you just get an extra unit. It helps you not take so much damage, so that does help. The problem here is that it's start of the turn, so it no longer works with Drukhari. That was something that I did enjoy doing, but it's not a prerequisite. It's absolutely not a prerequisite. I've had Music Box games where I did not have Drukhari and I was still okay with it just because it gave me a little bit of value early on. So again, this is very situational. It really depends on what types are in and how much gold do you have, how many minions do you have in your board, right? Cheeseville goes from 4 to 5. We just had a great Cheeseville game, so I can see it. It's good. Might have to get nerfed again. It's so good with Malchezaar. Coffin goes from 4 to 5. Yeah, all these trinkets that just give you direction and allow you to quite easily buff that direction, right? They seem quite good. So same thing here. You can just cast spells and get high high stats on your undead, so this was performing a little bit too well. Lava Lamp going from 3 to 4 gold is a little bit of a surprise to me. I have not seen this in my games, so I don't know if this is maybe a duos thing where they are maybe feeding their partner a bunch of elementals and then popping off. But I have not really seen people destroying my lobbies with Lava Lamp. We'd have to see exactly how this works, but it's interesting. It's a little bit like Trumpeteer, but because you can only ever have one, you're not going infinite or anything like that. I guess it is minions and not elementals, right? So it's not like Trumpeteer. You could sell Scout, and then you have 2 bodies. Okay. Sure, I'll try it out, I guess. Carving goes from 2 to 3. Not an insane trinket, but again, it just gives you direction. It just sets you up for self-damage beast, and those trinkets tend to do pretty well in the stats. Talisman goes from 3 gold to 2 gold. Yeah, nobody likes this shit. It's just some little tempo early. Now, however, if you were to make this free, it'd be way too good, because then we would compare it to those other trinkets that are free, and now you can just take a bunch of tempo for free. So having this for 2 gold is going to make it more likely that you can level to tier 4 and grab this, and that might just be good enough. So this change is not irrelevant, because it's not a bad trinket to take if all you're looking for is just a little bit of tempo so you can level. And the fact that it now costs 2 gold is going to make that realistic, whereas 3 gold, it was pretty hard to do that and level, unless you went 3 on 3, right? Because then it costs 5 gold. Shaker goes from 7 gold to 6 gold, but now your Zesty Shakers no longer copy regular spells, it's only copy Spellcraft. So we can see that change being reverted, going to 6 gold again. Staff goes from 3 to 4. So again, this was a trinket that just pushed you in a direction. So for most players, that is good for MMR. It's like, oh, I have staff. Oh, I'll just play some Deflectobots, get some resets. Okay, cool. That's my comp. I am now charging staff comp with Deflectos. And as we know, if you buff Deflectobot, that's generally pretty good. So I can see it. Now, Calligraphy set. This is one that matters. This was a very, very good meta pick. Getting early Calligraphy and then just playing stuff like Scallywag and Bonehead and buffing your gems like crazy was super strong. They've taken it from 5 gold to 2 gold, but it's now Avenge 5 instead of Avenge 4, and it only gives 1 extra health instead of 1/1. That is, whoa, that's really a double whammy, right? Avenge 5 is so much, and it's now only 1 health instead of 1/1. So I'm guessing that they looked at the stats of Calligraphy sets and were like, holy shit, this thing is insane. We have to nuke it. Because it does feel like it got nuked out of orbit, where it's just gone. Because I don't really think I want to spend several turns making my board majority tokens to try, because if your board doesn't have a lot of tokens, you're not getting more than 1 proc. So if you're only getting 1 proc, you're getting half a pokey proc. It's not good. So yeah, that's essentially it. That doesn't mean it kills off Quills, because you still have Murk-Eye with Jazzer, Rylak with Jazzer. It just means that you cannot just so easily pick up Calligraphy set and say, oh, I'm going to just need some gems at some point. I'm going to be super strong. It's a huge nerf. It does not feel good anymore. It went from one of the best ones to potentially one of the worst ones, but we're going to have to see. It does only cost 2 gold, and if you happen to have lots of tokens on your board, it could be worth it. Compass from 2 to 3, yeah, probably again, just gave people direction. So for 2 gold, they were getting a minion from their type every turn, and that just helped them build their comp. So gonna nerf it to 3 gold. Greater trinkets. Chest goes from 0 gold to 3 gold, but now it's every 2 attacks. This could actually be a pickup now. I feel like every time I had chest offered to me, I was like, no. Right? So, because it is a greater trinket, but getting a gold after every 2 attacks means that every time a Scallywag attacks and then kills off the Sky Pirate, you do get 1 gold. 1 recruiter could give you like what, 4 gold or something, right? So one recruiter is like 3.5 gold, which is solid, right? You could see this now. Yeah, I'm happy with that change. I think this trinket could use some love, and it received it. Sushi Roll is back, but instead of just spellcrafts cast twice, it's now your first 2 spellcrafts cast twice. Not horrible. Now, nowhere near the insane insta win it was before. Saying that your first deep blues cast twice is not bad. If you have a golden deep blue and you cast that 1 golden deep blue on a Zesty, boom boom, cast twice. I now cast that same golden D blue somewhere else. Boom, boom, cast twice. That's a lot of tempo, a lot of scaling. I think if you have a deep blue comp, this is a very solid pickup. Everything else, hot garbage. It is very, very, very specifically only for deep blue. You have to keep that in mind because casting any other spellcraft twice does not matter. Casting deep blue twice matters a lot, right? It matters a whole lot. Where can I read the notes with pictures? This is a ShadyBunny exclusive. This is all my editor doing extra work, so we have the pictures and everything and nice slides. So I don't think this is on the forums or anything or patch notes. Yeah, Lightfang goes from a lesser trinket to a greater trinket and now costs 1 gold. I don't give a shit. That's not worth a greater trinket. I'm sorry. For some levels of play, probably still pretty damn decent because I don't know what the MMR cutoff would be, and maybe you guys can help me with this. In my games, there is no way that on turn 9, I can just get a Lightfang and then start buffing my board with Lightfang. No way, right? Like maybe if for whatever reason I already had 2 Lightfangs on my board, but then I ask myself, why would I already have 2 Lightfangs on my board? Right? It just doesn't make sense. So for high MMR, it's way too slow. You just cannot get there by putting Lightfangs on your board. However, we have discussed this many times before. On different MMR brackets, a set amount of stat gain is very different. Let's say we are talking about 4K MMR. This is essentially the MMR that you start at, right? Your internal MMR is 4,000. So in a pure beginner's lobby, getting like a golden Lightfang plus a regular Lightfang plus a Drukhari on your board, excuse me, can probably make your board big enough to win the game. This is not the case in 10,000 MMR, right? You cannot just be like, I'm gaining +4, +3, plus Lightfang, and I'll get there, right? There's absolutely a cutoff. So I don't want to say that this trinket is garbage for everyone, but the higher up you go, the worse it will become. When I am looking at it, it just does not, I don't see the value in getting this trinket for me almost ever. Rivendare portrait, honestly, not horrible. Which is insane, right? And here's why. How many times have you been in a position where you say, I just need a Titus? So getting a Titus for 3 gold and then getting double the health. Yeah, again, when you compare it to some other picks, I'll take a Titus over Enforcer Portrait because if I have a Titus, I could actually build Scallywag comp, I could build Leaper comp, and those things can actually win lobbies or at the very least take top 2. Getting a Titus for 3 gold oftentimes is fine. Stealth was so much better, yes, and also completely unethical and is super frustrating, and get that shit out of here. So no talk of stealth. Nowhere near the best trinket in the game, of course, right? Before, it was close to the best trinket in the game. I think Sushiro was still slightly better, unnerfed, but Rivendare Portrait was like a very close second for greater portraits. Now it's nowhere near the best portrait in the game. I just want to emphasize that there are meta comps that all they need is a Titus and they are ready to roll. So if you have a setup for that and you're offered this, you're going to take it a lot of the time because the text on the portrait is then not necessarily, oh, you just get a Titus. It's like, get a Titus and save 20 health because you now have a Titus and your composition works. Just Titus itself is such a good card that you will still take this sometimes. Cheese Wheel from 4 to 6 gold. Hey, comp to it. I forgot to turn off alerts. My bad. So let me go back. So Cheese Wheel going from 4 to 6 gold. That is weird at first glance because I did not play with this trinket. And now I have played with this trinket. Oh my god, it's so good. Very, very good. So I took it for 6 gold and I still quite easily won the lobby. Now I had to get lucky. I grabbed a Felbat. So if you do not have Felbat, if you do not have Urzel, if you have no way of consuming the tavern, of course this is not great. But if you have a way to consume the tavern, it's super nice. So just getting Malchezaar, rolling a lot, buffing your tavern, and then just eating the shop is such a clean way to build stats. And, it's something to really draw the comparison. I talked about Lightfang not being good enough, right? If you have Dalaran Cheese Wheel and your shop is like 30/30s, which is not too hard to achieve, right? You're getting +2/+2 every 3 refreshes. You have Malchezaar, roll. And then you have a Felbat. You're gaining, right, like 150 or more, because there's some base stats as well from the shop. Like, your Lightfang is nowhere near gaining +150, right? So this is just the difference where you can see that these meta comps just outscale it so hopelessly. Coffin, same as the lesser one, probably just a little bit too easy to build direction. So a little bit of a cost increase. Felbat Portrait. Yes, this thing is insane. It costs 9 gold and I will pay 9 gold. We will have to make it cost 11. And then you need to cast a careful investment beforehand. I've had this twice and both games were easy, right? Like, my god, it's so good. It's just everything that demons that eat the shop struggle with, right? Oh, I have these Urzils, and then I am playing demons, and now I don't have enough minions in the shop anymore. I need to sell a unit and I need to roll. But I also have this Implicator on my board that's going to eat, and now I have Felbat and there's not enough stuff, and oh, I could only have 4 demons on my board. And like, this is like, okay, forget all the bullshit. Put a Felbat on your board, put 5 other demons on your board, and just eat, play Drakari, eat. It's insane. Super good portrait. Even if you have no setup for it, a lot of the time you'll still pay 9 gold, right? Assuming you have, let's say, like 2 demons or so. Of course, you're not going to get offered this if you have like nothing for demons, or it's going to be at a discount. So yeah, still good. Don't let the 9 cost deter you. Calligraphy set going from 5 gold to 7 gold, but here blood gems still give +2/+2. The big difference is that you're still gaining damage here. But if you have to pay 7 gold to get big calligraphy set, the issue is that that's kind of your turn, and then you have to start scaling your gems at that stage. You need to have a really good setup to make that work. Like, you almost already need a Bristlebach or something, because if you don't have Bristlebach, it's hard to run those Avenge units and not take damage. If your board doesn't really scream calligraphy set, I don't think you can take it. For 7 gold, if you have to start buffing your gems, then you would have to have some gem buffs already and something that is buffing your board, and then you can get away with it. But if you do not have a setup for it, you cannot really pivot into quills on turn 9 by paying 7 gold for calligraphy set. That is going to kill you so often. So keep that in mind. It's fine if you have a setup already. So let's say you tripled into Bristlebach and you have a Rapscallion on the board, and it's, you know, farming Bristlebach procs and you're farming calligraphy set procs at the same time. Great. Add it to your Quillboar setup. If not, probably gonna die. Darnassus Pie going from 3 gold to 5 gold. So yeah, these shop eating trinkets have really overperformed, at least for me. So there have been nice buffs for demons where you now can run Bran together with the Percussionist to then pull stuff like Urzil or buff your Urzils. So having the ability to just make a huge shop, and especially combining it with Mirage Conjurer, has been good. So I can see that there is a nerf for these shop eating trinkets. Fridge Magnet, okay. Fridge Magnet going from 3 gold to 4 gold. Again, that is not too surprising because it does give you direction. So if you already had some mechs on your board, you suddenly have a really good setup for Beatboxer if you're running this. And even if you don't have Beatboxer, I have played this myself and I've been pretty happy with it. A lot of the time your mechs are going to have Reborn. So if you have Reborn, then you're going to farm that Avenge much easier. You're going to get a Quartertrons, you're going to get more Reborn, you're going to get shields on everything. And it was just a nice little overall buff, even if I wasn't playing Beatboxers. And if you were playing Beatboxers, then this is extremely good. Kodo Litter Pouch goes from 4/4 to 5/5. I don't care, that's still bad. I don't know, man, maybe not. I've never seen someone with Kodo Pouch and be like, damn, they're owning. I've never even been close to being compelled to take this as a greater trinket. If we just compare it to all the other effects that are possible, giving a random minion 5/5 every time I buy a card, like, I would need to have like double Tethys on my board or something. I would need to have like the sickest APM setup. Even then, there's probably picks that I would like more. It's just not good enough. But again, the issue here is that it's a static amount, right? It's 5/5. Per minion buy. Now, granted, in higher MMR, people are going to be better at finding ways to buy more units because they'll have more economy, but still, it just doesn't feel too good. Keychain goes from 6/4 to 7/5. Okay, now we are hitting a point where if I happen to have a board that has lots of Handless, Bonehead, Reborn, I might start looking at this and say, you know what? Okay, 7/5 on all my tokens. If I'm in the right position, I'll go for it. Still not something I'm super happy with. It's kind of like Feral Talisman. I don't know if that's getting buffed as well. Yeah, it's going from 5/3 to 6/4. Again, right? It's just meh. These trinkets are very similar. Talisman and Keychain. It's not going to win you the game. That's the problem, right? It's just not. So it's really a pickup that you have to take to survive and be strong enough. But the issue is if I'm playing tokens, I have to take Keychain to survive. How am I winning the game? It's almost like I would need to have Comfy Coffin already, right? Scally Comp buff? I don't know. +5 health means they might live, and then you're so screwed, right? I don't know if that's above. Suddenly my scallywags have 6 health. I'm not too comfortable with that. Because all you need is one to get stuck, right? If one of your skellies is stuck, it's like the whole machine just stops. I'm not too sure I want to have extra health on my scallywags. But yeah, in particular positions, you might need to do it and take the chance. Dreamcatcher from 5 to 7. Yeah, we've seen this over and over again. This gives you direction. It means you can just play dragons, play poet, and here you go. Lots of high damage on your board, so we're going to make that more expensive because it's too easy to just play this and have direction. Medallion goes from 5/5 to 6/6. Yeah, just was not providing enough of a boost. So while it is also nice with Poet, it's still only +5/+5 per turn, whereas something like this is immediate tempo, immediate everything is giga damage. So the difference is quite staggering. Yeah, just not something I'm super happy with. I think I've taken this once when I was dying, and it did help me not die. So in that case, I can see it. It's an immediate tempo boost, but again, compared to what a lot of the greater trinkets are doing, it's just not worth a greater trinket oftentimes. Glow skill portrait, yeah, just does not feel good enough as well. It's going from 4 gold to 3 gold. The best result I've had with this was when I shielded double Titus in a Leaper comp. Like, if I'm playing Nagas, I honestly generally don't really care that I can make a couple shields permanent. I don't know why. Maybe it used to be better, and now in the meta, it just doesn't make sense. Leroy is a card, right? So I think the best use for this is to permanently shield your Titus, which is ridiculous. But if you're playing Leaper comp, oftentimes that's all you need. If I have a shield on my Titus, it now has 2 lives, and that's a lot of the time enough to win with Leapers. Blood Golem goes from 4 gold to 3 gold, but now only works on 2 of your units. I have lost to 2 opponents that had a really good setup, and it felt unbeatable. When they had huge gems, normally you have to run Scam. But when you run Scam and your opponent is summoning huge tokens, it felt unbeatable. So bringing it from 3 to 2, I think is a good first step. But in the right setup, this is still going to feel very tough to beat. It's a lot of stats that are coming down. Then Talisman is pretty much the same as Keychain. We talked about it. Sometimes if I have the perfect setup for it, and I really don't like any of the others, sure. Other than that, no thank you. Conductor Portrait. So we see a nerf. I'm not sure if that nerf is warranted after the calligraphy set nerf, because Conductor Portrait was good, but a lot of the time it was in combination with having calligraphy early. The nerf is that you are now only buffing 5 units instead of your whole board. So I don't know, actually. I'm not sure if the nerf is still warranted then. Glider goes from 6 attack to 8 attack. We did talk about the change with Hunter of Gatherers going from tier 5 to tier 4. That makes something like this a lot better, because if you have Hunter of Gatherers on your board, you can isolate that as your only dragon and then give your board a lot of HP. Other than that, man, this feels awkward because you can't have Dragonwing Glider and Dreamcatcher in the same one unless you have specifically Trip Voucher, right? But we're not gonna talk about that. That seems like an outlier. So for the most part, it just doesn't really feel worth. Sickle going from 5 to 7 gold surprised me a little bit. But if you have Crasher on your board, the 5-drop that buffs your board with Overflow, yeah. Getting a Butchering every turn and just killing off anything that makes more things when you have Titus on the board is just tons of buffs. Especially if you can double up, right? Like double Titus, double Crasher, play the thing that makes 4 1/1s and then just pop it. Oh my god, I could see the nerf. It's a very solid strategy to make a huge board. Sky Lanterns going from 2 gold to 4 gold. Yeah, this is exactly what I mean, right? When we talk about trinkets that are worth it, trinkets that allow you to do something. If you have twin Sky Lanterns, you can have a huge automaton comeback. You can have a huge bream counter coming out of a base skill. There is an angle there. If you are already summoning something, you will get instant tempo from this trinket. Similar to how, say, a talisman will provide instant tempo. But a talisman is then done. Whereas this thing says, well, you can now continuously buff the huge minion that is in your hand that you are summoning with either base skill or Dire Muck, or even I've even done something like Secret Guy, taunt a Golden Eternal Knight, copy the Eternal Knight with the secret, and then I summon 2 more Golden Eternal Knights. You can build your whole game around that trinket. This is an example of a trinket that has potential to win you the game, and that is obviously much better than something that is just going to give you some tempo. Urn goes from 7 attack to 8 attack. Meh. similar, right? It's just that up front, again, if we compare it to Coffin, with Coffin, I have the ability to go to 40 attack. Now, I don't get it straight away, but still, let's say you have Coffin, and then you play a coin and an overconfidence that turn. I now already have +4 attack. Compare that to this shit where it's a one-time +7, no negotiation afterwards. It's like, okay, here's your 7 attack. I'm done. My work here is done. And then he leaves. Just very hard to be okay with that if I'm going to assign a greater trinket slot. Doesn't mean you never take it. Sometimes you need that immediate tempo boost to not die. Sorry, okay, +8 attack, whatever. It's just not, yeah. All right, chess set goes from summoning 3 to summoning 2. That's still good. A lot of the time, the third minion I was copying was inconsequential for quite a long time. You can still summon a huge cleave. You can still copy a reborn Leroy. You can still copy 2 reborn golden automatons. It still feels really good. So we'll have to see if it's still going to be super broken or if it's just if it's okay now. Booty Bay Brew from 2-4 to 3-4. I haven't really played much with this, I think only one time, and the animation was quite bad. So I'm not sure if you have Tethys that you want to risk giving yourself a lot of animation lag. I'm not sure if this was fixed or not. That is a huge hindering factor because the only really way you would want to play this is if you're APMing. And if you're APMing, you do not want to take something that is going to slow you down. So that is honestly the biggest factor here. Other than that, I don't think you're going to grab it in most cases. But again, if you have double Tethys, then you say, okay, let's just grab this and not die. Similar here, going from 7-7 to 8-8. Not something I want to waste a greater trinket on. If I have... Oh, that's actually a good point. On Booty Bay Brew, the reason why this would be better than Pouch is it's going to go on a pirate. So you can actually aim it. You can have it just buff your Tethys, or you could just have one big pirate and buff it. With Kodo, it's just going to go wherever. And it's also when you spend gold, not just when you buy a minion. So you can, or is it buy a card? Is Kodo Pouch buy a card? It's buy a card. Okay, that's fair. You can still buy coin. Still, the ability to concentrate my buffs, I like it a lot more. Yeah, so Gauntlet is very similar to the Talisman and to all those cards. I generally don't like him. However, if you have something like a Felbat, if you have something like Urzel, this can get you started, and then there is a build path afterwards. So I like this a lot more. This gives you, oh right, if you roll. Sorry, I'm just like right, whenever you spend gold. Oh yeah, this is so much better than Pouch. It's not even close. This is buy a card, right? Oh man, you versus the guy she told you not to worry about. Am I right, chat? Bro, I can roll? My goodness, that's a lot better. Okay, so again, for Gauntlets, while this is still pretty inconsequential in terms of winning the game, it gives you a nice head start in a game-winning direction. Mug of the Sire goes from 4 attack to 5 attack. I can see that. This is not a permanent buff if it happens during the combat phase. I have messed around a little bit with it, so I think there is potential here. Something that works really well is to use either Butchering or Grave Robber to kill off a minion in the Tavern phase and then get the buff permanently. So what I did was run Pharynx, Titus, and then just use Grave Robbers on Caretakers, and I would get huge attack to my board right now. Actually, a little bit like Nightbane. So it's like a more balanced Nightbane, where you actually have to roll Grave Robbers and stuff to kill off your units. You cannot really use Kel'Thuzad that well, because then your minion is gone. So you could still do it. You just have to buy a new undead you're killing every turn. Okay, that was it, guys. Big review, lots of changes. Hope you guys enjoyed it.